Welcome. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're jumping back in time, way back to 12th century India to look at a math textbook. Now, I know what you're thinking, but this is not your average dusty old textbook. This one claims to be something else entirely.
I mean, just listen to that. That's how the author describes his own work on computation. Not difficult, not complicated, but delightful, elegant, pleasing. That quote right there is the central mystery we are going to unravel.
So that's the big question for this whole explainer. What on earth did the author mean by that? What could possibly make a bunch of mathematical rules from almost 900 years ago delightful? Well, to find out, we have to dive right into the world that it describes.
Okay, let's get into it. First, we need to understand what the author was even trying to do. What was the whole point of this text? Right from the get-go, the author sets a really unique tone. The book actually starts with a prayer to the elephant-headed deity Ganesha, who is known as a reliever of embarrassment. How perfect is that for a book trying to make math clear? The stated goal, as you can see, wasn't to be complicated. It was to create an easy process of computation. The book itself is named Lilavati, which means charming. It wasn't meant to be scary. It was designed to be a pleasure for smart people to work with.
So how did this delightful idea actually play out in the real world? Well, the best place to start is somewhere we can all understand, the marketplace and the money that people used every single day.
Just look at this fantastic ladder of value. It starts with something so simple, the cowrie shell, a real physical thing you could hold in your hand for tiny purchases. And from there, the system just scales up perfectly. Shells get you copper coins, copper gets you silver coins, and silver gets you a gold coin. It's this clear, logical climb from the tangible stuff in your pocket to the truly valuable. Okay, so that's how they handled money, but what about weighing things? Spices or gold or grain? Well, instead of inventing some abstract man-made standard, they found the answer all around them, in the natural world itself. This right here is the fundamental building block of their entire system of measurement. Everything, and I mean absolutely everything, starts with the width of a single, tiny barley corn. It's organic, it's consistent, and it's something you could find literally anywhere. And they didn't just stop at one seed, which is super smart. They also used the gunja seed. And by defining its weight in relation to the barley corn, they built this elegant little system of checks and balances, all based on the predictable sizes of things that grow from the ground. And here you can see exactly how that system scales up. You go from a gunja seed to a vala to a dharana and so on. The real beauty of this is in its logic. There are no weird invented units like grams or ounces that you just have to memorize. It's a complete hierarchy built from things you can actually see and touch.
The system was also incredibly smart and adaptable. For something as important as gold, they had a special standard called the suvarna. This just shows you that they had another layer of precision built in for really valuable stuff.
But here's where it gets truly mind-blowing. This system went way beyond just weighing small things. This single, elegant idea of using a barley corn as a base, well, they scaled it up to measure not just a bag of grain, but the entire world they lived in. Let's just pause and think about that for a second. That tiny little unit, the width of one single grain, is the key that unlocks how they measured everything, from a piece of cloth all the way to the distance between cities. The scale of this is just staggering. So how in the world do you get from a seed to measuring a kingdom? Well, the first step is genius in its simplicity. You take 8 of those little barley corns and you lay them side by side. That width now becomes your next unit of measurement, a finger. In one move, the system beautifully connects the botanical world to the human body, creating a standard that's both natural and totally relatable. The next step? We scale up from the finger. You take 24 of those finger units and you get 1 cubit. Now this length, which is about the length of a forearm, is fascinating because you see it pop up in so many ancient cultures. It's the perfect bridge from a tiny unit to a length that's really practical for everyday, human-sized jobs, like building or weaving. And this is what I love. It shows just how practical the system was. They didn't have just one rigid definition of a cubit. Nope, they had a standard one, and then they had a longer, practical cubit that was used specifically by artisans. This proves it wasn't just theory, it was a living tool that was adapted for the real-world needs of craftsmen. And here is where the scale just completely explodes. From that cubit, you get a staff. 2,000 of those staffs make a kruksa, which is a measure of distance. And 4 of those make a yojana, a unit they use to measure the vast distances of a kingdom. And remember, all of this started with a single barley corn. But wait, it doesn't stop with length. The system actually moves into 3 dimensions. A perfect cube that measured 1 cubit on every single side became the basis for measuring volume, especially for grain. This standard measure was called a kari. And no surprise here, just like with weight and length, this base unit for volume was logically broken down into smaller parts. The kari was divided up usually by factors of 4 or 16, which made it incredibly easy to measure and divide portions. It was a complete system for anything from a handful of rice to a silo of corn.
And so now we can finally go all the way back to our original question. That delightfulness the author talked about, it wasn't just some poetic, flowery language. It was a real, honest-to-goodness appreciation for the sheer elegance of this system. It's a kind of math that starts with a single seed and logically, beautifully builds up to describe everything: currency, weight, distance, and volume. It's a complete, holistic way of seeing and quantifying the entire world.
And that leaves us with a fascinating final thought. Our modern systems, meters, grams, liters, they're based on universal scientific constants. They're incredibly precise. Their system was based on organic, tangible things you could find at any village. Both are brilliant, but they reflect totally